We are currently living through a polycrisis. It's a period of time where several global shifts are hitting us simultaneously. And our businesses and our societies have not been this impacted by geopolitics and macroeconomic factors since the Second World War. My name is Charlotta Kvarnström. I lead technology, media and telecommunications for EY Europe Central and Nordics. And I'm super excited today, first of all, I will walk you through macro and geopolitical trends to give a perspective on the world we live in and especially on technology. Then I will give you an update on where we are on technology from a few different perspectives, of course, with an emphasis on AI. And then I will give a perspective on how we can turn the current uncertainties and challenges into positive differentiation and competitive advantage. And then I will be joined by a brilliant set of minds that will have a conversation together with me, and hopefully we can give some positive perspectives on the future ahead. We are looking at 5 fundamental transitions that will shape the decade ahead. And although the 1970s was also disruptive with oil crisis, stagflation and the Cold War, the current shifts are interconnected, they are non-linear, and they are more complex, which means that they are fundamentally more and more structurally impacting ourselves and our businesses and societies. And we are watching a new world order being created in real time. The first transition is money. We are leaving a period of 15 years of free money, where we have a constant inflation today and massive sovereign debt. Public money is being moved from short-term consumption and into building the foundations of tomorrow, which includes AI infrastructure, energy systems, semiconductors, and transport. Germany, as an example, has stood up a 500 billion euro infrastructure and climate neutrality fund that corresponds to 12% of Germany's GDP. And that is one of the largest infrastructure investments globally. The second transition is sustainability. And the forced transition from a carbon-based economy to renewables is the largest capital reallocation project in human history. Governments are turning sustainability into strategy, and we are building new and cleaner supply chains. Norway, as an example, produces 99% of their electricity on low-carbon sources, while remaining one of the most productive countries in Europe. Technology. I don't have to preach to this room. The AI revolution will restructure labor and cognition in similar ways as we saw during the Industrial Revolution. AI has moved from experimentation to becoming a macroeconomic factor. United States big tech is investing nearly 700 billion in AI infrastructure in 2026 alone. That is the largest single-year tech capex wave in history. Huge numbers. Swedish public sector could unlock as much as 25 billion Swedish crowns annually in productivity gains. Demographics. For the first time in human history, in modern history, our world population is aging rapidly. And in some key markets, including China, Japan, and Europe, the workforce pool is actually shrinking. In Japan, where almost 30% of the people is above 65 years old. They are rolling out a nationwide healthcare system. Because in order for us to equip our aging population, technology will be the backbone for our future healthcare systems. And in Japan, they are projecting this project to reach almost $800 billion by 2040. In India, on the other hand, 1 million workers are added to the workforce every month. Supply, the final transition. The globalization as we have known it for 30 years is moving into a different type of globalization. Supply chains are today more regional, more diversified and more resilient, and they are focused more on reliability, security and trust, rather than only lowest cost. Trade is being realigned around strategy and security, and countries are forming more tight ecosystems and alliances around energy, semiconductors, and critical technologies. Vietnam has emerged as a beneficiary of this diverse new supply chain, and they record an 8.2 GDP growth in 2025 as a result of this. Companies are taking tariffs, trade blocks, and geopolitical factors into account into their investment decisions, and this will reshape where technology is built and scaled. If we look at where we are on AI and technology, 52% of companies globally are currently investing in Gen AI. And Nordic enterprises, 36% are investing, and that means that the gap between global investments and Nordic company investments has actually increased. Last year, 37% of companies invested in Nordics. Agentic AI, 34% of companies globally are investing, and 25% of Nordic companies are investing. Currently, 44% of Nordic CEOs are engaged in emerging tech decisions, to be compared with 52% of global CEOs. And this is telling us that we look a little less strategically at these decisions in Nordics and Sweden compared to globally, although this gap has decreased somewhat since last year. Deployment. If you listened in last year, you might remember that 100% of enterprise investments in Gen AI last year was pilots and proof of concepts. And globally, that number was 99%. So we had a very low return on investment. Now we see that it's starting to scale. 38% of Gen AI investments are deployed, although in limited business processes, but it's starting to scale. Investment levels are increasing, both for AI, 5G, and other emerging technologies, and geopolitical and regulatory environment factors are the key top external factors influencing these investments. New policies and legislation when it comes to governing technology and data is the leading factor. 34% of companies state that this is the leading factor, and 42% say it's an important factor. So again, we've never been this impacted by geopolitics and macroeconomic factors. Digital sovereignty are influencing supplier selection choices, and we see an increased appetite of supplier consolidation. 77% of companies state that that is due to increased security requirements. 77%. Also from a sovereignty perspective, we can conclude that 41% of Nordic companies are today choosing a combination of local and national cloud providers. And already today, 9% of enterprises are only choosing a local or national cloud provider. If we look at AI sentiment, we look here at sentiment and usage. This year, Finland and Sweden are categorized as laggers. So if we divide the world into 3 categories, Sweden and Finland are in the third and last laggard category. AI is already part of everyday life in Sweden. Many people do use AI for familiar and low-risk activities. And that shows that there is a broad understanding of the technology and a curiosity and digital maturity. However, looking at the confidence of AI's future impact, we are more cautious in Sweden. And that is not due to the lack of capability, but it is due to the lack of hands-on experience and training. 6 out of 10 Swedes say that they have not received a recent AI training. 12%, however, of Swedes are using AI agents to take decisions for them when it comes to their personal finances. So there is a bit of a nuanced picture. If we look at AI at work, 88% of employees use AI at work, but only 15% use AI on a daily basis. 16% has used agentic AI the last 6 months. 12% of Swedes have received more than 80 hours of training, and only 5% are advanced AI users. So, based on these facts and data, this is nothing new, and we have to conclude that we have an investment gap in Nordics and Europe versus the rest of the world, and we have an enterprise adoption gap. To accelerate adoption, we need to combine skill set, tool set, and mindset. We need to ensure that people are trained and properly skilled. We need to ensure everyone has access to the right tools and solutions. And we need to ensure that we have the right mindset. We need leaders that can lead the change and are willing to rethink how we organize ourselves and our work. That's the only way for us to increase adoption and realize value. There is a lot of positive initiatives and momentum in Sweden. So if the facts and stats is what I've just talked about, we also see that there's a lot happening and going on. Sweden is one of few countries in the world that has a national AI strategy. And in that strategy, we have the ambition that Sweden should be top 10 in AI, and that Nordic should be a leading AI region. We also have an ambition to be world leading in using AI in public administration, increasing quality and decreasing cost. And an ambition is also that we should use AI to create world-leading entrepreneurs and competitive enterprises. We also have a lot of positive momentum around new initiative and establishments. To mention a few, we have spherical AI, the collaboration between Wallenberg and NVIDIA, large-scale AI infrastructure to increase Sweden's competitiveness. Vinnova is building a developer platform solution, and this will mean that Sweden will be one of few countries that actually have a national integrated vertical AI stack. AI Sweden has as an ambition to accelerate AI adoption and increase Sweden's competitiveness. We have several data center establishments in Sweden, including Mistral in Borlänge and Brookfield that will invest 95 billion Swedish crowns and together with Telia Company deliver sovereign AI solutions. 1 out of the 5 EU-financed AI gigafactories will be established in Scandinavia. And in addition to this, the geopolitical situation and the fact that Sweden and Finland are now NATO members is also increasing heavily the investments into mission critical and defense. And with a dual tech strategy and mindset, we can ensure that these investments will give us return on investment and positive ripple effects also in the private sector. All of these initiatives are creating positive momentum. It will ensure that we do attract more capital to Sweden, because that is crucial for us to close the investment gap, obviously. And it will also attract more tech talent and skills, something we are in dire needs of. So this actually creates a competitive advantage, or we have the possibility to do that, because Sweden is increasingly being recognized as a green, safe haven. We have access to incentives. We have high digital maturity and tech talent. We have green energy and infrastructure, and we have regulated AI, although we need to find the balance here. We have a strong industrial ecosystem, and we have world-class R&D, and we still have one of the largest unicorns per capita in Sweden. Swedish data centers operates on 70% renewables and 99% fossil-free energy. Our AI solutions and tech solutions are known to be secure, transparent, explainable, and regulated. Again, we need to find a balance, because in Asia and Silicon Valley, the regulations are different, and we need to find that balance. We also know, however, that enterprise adoption is 3 times higher for certified AI solutions. So we need to lead with trust as a product strategy. So why does all this matter then? Well, we need to understand how to navigate these 5 transitions I started to talk about. We need to understand what is structural and what is temporary. Because again, the world has not been this impacted by geopolitical and macroeconomic factors since the World War II. And we need to understand how we can leverage the positive momentum that we do see in Sweden and turn this into a competitive advantage. And why it matters is because up to 60% of equity returns for our companies can today be linked to geopolitical and macroeconomic factors. And on that note, lots of numbers and facts. I would love to have a conversation with some brilliant minds on how we actually can turn this into opportunities and positive competitive advantage. So I would love to welcome up on stage Arba Kokalari, member of the European Parliament, Jennifer Florido, Group Head of Talent and Growth at Telia Company, Susanna Eskola, COO, Nokia Defense, and Therése Treutiger, Global Partner Solutions and Innovation, Microsoft.
Fåtöljen. Här. Ja, det får vara.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Such a set of brilliant minds. I'm hoping we will get some inspiration and hope for the future. So, last Sunday we talked about that some of us, Lightning or Flash, ran the half marathon in Beijing, and he beat the human world record with almost 7 minutes. That's what's going on in Asia in parallel to what we're talking about happening here in Nordics. We have a poly crisis, we have an investment gap, we have an enterprise adoption gap, while seeing some positive momentum, and we live in a world which has never been this much impacted since World War II of geopolitical and macroeconomic facts. I want to start with you, Arba, because we know that we regulate in EU, Europe and Nordics more than they do in the US and in Asia on the other hand. I didn't talk about that today, but our studies also clearly show that increased regulatory environment is creating barriers for AI scaling and emerging tech scaling. So I'm curious to because I know you passionately drive this subject and you lead this in the European Parliament. How do you think that we, first of all, can strike the right balance? And if we manage to do that, because we also know that enterprise adoption is 3 times higher for certified solutions. So I'm curious about your perspective. How far do we find the balance, and can we turn it into a competitive advantage?
Yeah, you are asking me the 10,000 crown question, how to find a balance on regulating in the tech environment. I think there is a little bit of a false perception out there in the debate that either we regulate or we innovate, and Europe is very good in regulating and not innovating. I think that bad regulation kills innovation, but smart regulation can create markets. I mean, to have a functioning, growth and to enable the new technology, we need to have, of course, guardrails and safety, because the investors, they want predictability, the entrepreneurs, they want simplicity, and the customers, they want trust, right? So if you're going to win your customers to use your products, your AI product, you need to build trust. I think that will be even more important. But the reality is also that in some ways we are over-regulated, and at the same time our Swedish European startups are drowning in paperwork. At the same time their American and Chinese competitors are launching new products every day. So we need to find that balance, and I've been tasked to fix the regulations in Europe.
Small task.
But I mean, I really think that in Sweden, particularly here in Stockholm, we have, the best startups in the world. We have the best opportunities. We have a reliable, more democracy than our competitors out there. So what we need to do is finding that balance so that companies can thrive in this AI area, so that it becomes easier to launch safe AI products in Europe. And that we have to fix some of those regulations. And that's what I'm trying to do at my work in Brussels. So it's not about either we have laws or not. It's about finding that good balance so that our regulations are future-proof, predictable, and that they work with innovation and not against. But because I think that going all wild, like they're doing in some way, we've seen
other parts of the world
debates about Anthropic and the Trump administration and mass surveillance that they're doing in China. I don't think that can be the way forward for how AI should be developed. We need to set the rules in the EU, and I think that we have a lesson to learn in the EU to make our laws more functional, more AI innovative friendly. So if we want the rest of the world to follow us, we need to simplify some of our rules, definitely.
Agreed. And we are very grateful that you are leading this work.
Thank you.
I want to just have you comment there as well, Therése. Do you see because you have a global innovation and partner role in Microsoft, do you see that we at some point or in some aspects do use this or are able to use this as a competitive advantage, that we are more secure, trust, reliable?
Now, I love what you said about trust, and I'm very grateful that we have Arba here today, a voice in the world, I would say, and in Brussels. But just coming back to, I would say that, yes, Sweden, we are behind, no doubt about it, but we're also in the forefront. So I would say we have the startups, we have brilliant startups, for example, that becomes like unicorns in 3 years of time or period. And they do digital leaps, so they just step behind all the regulation. Of course, they do that with trust and concerns, but they go directly into using the AI components and leverage that onto the global world. So, and then on the contrary, we have some of the large companies, and particularly public sector, that is super, super slow. And that is actually a risk that I see from as a citizen, that we are not using the capabilities, for example, of AI in healthcare. And we need to do that, because otherwise, in those areas, we will just be behind. And I think that is not a good sense for me as a citizen. So I think you have two ways.
Yes.
You have the super smart, and that's why we are leading in the unicorn factory globally. But they usually sell outside of Europe, and they sell outside. They sell in the market, in the global market, so they sell in the US. And then we have a super strict, cautious. And I haven't seen that moving the last 10 years, to be very transparent.
Agreed. And
maybe not positive news, but
no,
it's a lot
but
of
it
things
is
to do.
it's a dual. It's two sides of not the same coin, but it is two perspectives, and it's the reality we live in. And we also saw there that Japan is investing heavily. We are in Europe, Japan, and China. We have an aging population, so we do need to use technology. I think there's no other way around it, right? So let's move on to defense and mission critical. Interrelated. As I said, these trends and global shifts are interrelated. Based on your experience, Susanna, on defense and mission critical technologies, what is your perspectives on investments, dual use, so that we are doing large investments into defense and mission critical? And also, how can Nordic be a joint and leading region here? And maybe also if there's a diversity perspective on this.
Okay, so 3 excellent angles to that question. If I comment on the investments first, it is a positive thing that the Nordics have all significantly increased investments in defense and mission critical in the last few years. And we are on track to achieve the NATO goals, whether it's 3.5 or 5%, I think all the Nordics are on track. So that's positive. What I actually think is more interesting to notice is where the investment is going. We have seen a very significant shift from traditional defense industries more towards safe, resilient communications and connectivity, AI-enabled decision-making, data architectures, and this is actually a huge shift because these are areas that we didn't used to see as defense. And this has implications. Nordics could be in the lead here, as we've discussed. There is a very good startup ecosystem here. I was slightly worried about the AI adoption rates, but traditionally, at least, we have been digitally mature economies, and we are software exporters. So basically, we should have a very strong position to start. But what is also significant is that this changes the traditional defense procurement completely. So it's about innovation, it's about constant iteration, and it's about speed. And this is a new way of working, and it's significantly shaping up the defense industry.
Right.
On the Nordics, I think this is also a very positive thing. I think we all share the understanding that Nordics share same interests, same values. There is a very strong political will and will across the societies to work as one entity, in particular when it comes to defense. The dual-use technologies that we're now using more and more in defense actually for the first time bring a new aspect to this, because it's easy to say at a high political level that we want to be working together, we want collaboration. It's even possible to set up like joint procurement, logistics, but how do you actually make the collaboration come to action? I'm cutting some corners here, but if in the past it was more about making sure that your military radios were interoperable and you could talk with each other, now the picture is much more complex. Now it's about making sure that your sensors, your systems, your people, your data architectures, everything is working as one network. So it's a complex picture, but at the same time, the shift to dual use, it's making it slightly easier, because contrary to proprietary military systems, dual use is often interoperable by nature. If we take 5G, for instance, that's based on global standards. So the starting point to make that interoperability into actionable things is actually easier. So that's definitely a positive. And actually the final positive is on the diversity, because just think about the shift from heavy industries, traditional defense companies, more towards ecosystem, using telecoms companies, startups, AI companies, software companies more in defense. I actually bet that many people in the audience actually work in the defense segment, you just don't know it yet. But this is bringing like whole new kind of industrial diversity, cognitive diversity, and also gender diversity into defense. And I actually think this will be essential in speeding up the innovation.
Lovely. And Jennifer, Telia company has the national security responsibility and is very important in the mission critical in Sweden, but also other countries. Anything you have to add or a reflection on what Susanna just said?
Absolutely, and we work closely together. So for Telia company, mission critical is our main area, one of our main areas to focus on. And we are seeing the pull, as just as you've seen and said in your presentation, from our customers for exactly the sovereign services. So this is very alive and well in all of our conversations.
Right. I'll stay with you, Jennifer.
Okay.
So when it comes to the enterprise adoption gap and actually seeing that the technology development and the enterprise adoption is actually diverging rather than the opposite. What do you believe organizations need to do differently? What are some of the learnings you have made? And what is your perspective on how we can accelerate closing this gap?
So first of all, thank you so much for running that study, because I've been sharing that amongst all the people I'm working with, and I think it's an aha moment for us in the Nordics. Aha, are we lagging? Because actually, I think that we have a perception of ourselves, just as you've mentioned, we're very digital. Yep. Like we're in the forefront of being able, and I mean, working in telco, we know how connected we are. That's our core business. So I think it was an aha moment. So when looking back, and I know everyone in the audience maybe comes from different kinds of companies, small to big. I'm going to take a corporate perspective in my answer, just speaking to your point there. So I see three main things that are affecting this divergence or what we're working on actively. And the first one's around technology availability. So what are the tools that we're actually allowing our people to have access to? Right. The second one's around people and leadership. And the third one is around investment and big bets. And I think they really resonate with all the findings you had in the beginning. And the first one around technology availability, and today's been a big theme of that. I mean, outside of work, my goodness, we've just started booming with everything from, I've just had coaching for these key messages this morning with my co-pilot, etc. So I think we're very, very native in all the AI that we have outside of work. As soon as we come inside of work in a corporate context, the world can look quite different. And I think we need to be very cognizant of potential mixed messages that we give our employees. So we know of the security that affects and how much we want to keep our companies safe. So there could be a sense of, oh, experiment, but you know what, be careful. And what does that mean for the employee on the ground? We need to be a lot clearer on the guardrails that we provide for people. Yeah. But still not take away that excitement. Because that leads me to my second point around people and leadership. So we've worked a lot, and I've spoken to my peers in cross-industry. I think we've all made a really big step in the corporate world in actually raising people's awareness of AI to a base level. So we've actually worked with uplift programs, anything that's free but also purchased, just to be able to say that we speak the common language and we've moved further in a hurdle so that we actually know what we're talking about. This next step, however, is the most interesting. Because now we're actually going to be working into, right, let's roll up our sleeves and talk about what is the future of work because of AI.
Yes.
And that is going to involve much more or demand much more of our leaders, because we're going to need to take a step back and say, how can we do things differently? And what's the impact of that? So much more moving from piloting, as you've said, into work redesign, which is super interesting, but can be a bit intimidating, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And then the third aspect is around, also tied, all goes together, investment. Let's be honest, AI, it doesn't come cheap. And we also need to know where we put our money, and our big focus actually is going to provide a return on investment. And the return on investment on AI may not be linear. So it's not as it used to be, hey, let's put this amount of money and you need to guarantee me this much in return. I mean, the art of AI and exploring it means that it could be many, many different things. So having budgets to be able to explore and learn is going to be a key focus. And that then leads us to the last part, which is, what are the big bets? And we're actually looking very much, especially in telco, what are our peers doing in some of the areas that maybe are less regulated, but also amongst us in a very big landscape in Europe. So we're learning from each other all the time. So to sum it up, moving from piloting into bigger shifts and trying to connect all those dots.
Lovely. Simple task.
Yeah, easy.
Very good. No, but it is. I think we need bold leaders to dare to look at how we reorganize ourselves, because otherwise we will not get the benefits out of this technology, and we will not get return on investment. Therése, you see a lot of companies, private and public sector, in your work. What are your thinking around? I mean, Microsoft has also done lots to actually support and help upskilling.
Yeah.
You have had, and you can talk about them yourselves. I think commendatory initiatives that is, beneficiary for our societies and our companies. What are some of your thoughts on some large-scale upskilling initiatives across private, public sector, and also collaborating between private, public, and academia? Give us your perspective.
Yeah, no, but I'm super positive here because I've seen a huge change. And this is the women in tech, and we have like 29% still yet in the tech companies. But I see a trend now, I see the light, to be honest, because it's actually shifting. Because when you talk about AI, you need to have business insight, you need to come from the business, you need to be an accountant, you need to be a doctor working in healthcare. And when you combine this well, that's when magic happens. And I think you will have much more served. You don't need to be able to code. You can just have ideas, and then you will have the coding done for you. And I think that will really help us in the upskilling. And we can see that already started quite fast. So here we are really, really fast, both in public sector and in private companies. So I feel very positive about the skilling initiatives that is happening now. You mentioned Linköping University. They are brilliant, outstanding, and really top-notch in Sweden, just as an example, and how much they're also investing in their students.
And I think I want your perspective here also finally on that question, Arba. I think I'm talking to a lot of companies, of course, in my job, but also, private discussions. We have a situation where our school system has not integrated AI into the school plans fully, right? And I think we need to take responsibility for the next generation here. If schools are not providing the training, how do we sort of ensure that the students that are graduating now actually adopt these skills? And I think everyone has a personal responsibility. I think academia and the school system definitely does, and companies need to sort of fill the gap, and Microsoft is a really good example. But I want to listen to your perspective here, Arba, also. What do you think, in the shift we are now and the fact that we are lagging, how can we sort of try to capture that group of people, and what are some advice or thoughts that you have on this?
Well, I totally agree when you say that we are living a little bit in old merits. I think that we take technology a bit for granted in Sweden, and I think that Europe takes our strong economy or welfare for granted. And I think just the last year, everyone now in Europe, all governments have understood that, oh right, we cannot live in our merits because our competitors, who are, by the way, not democracies or semi-democracies, are running ahead of us. And the growth gap that we have right now with the US is about innovation and AI. So I would say that has become a totally political shift. I mean, I've been talking about this for almost 7 years in the European Parliament, but suddenly people are understanding that we need to work with technology and lead it. Otherwise, our welfare systems are at stake, our futures are at stake, our kids. I mean, I want them to study in Stockholm and not in Shenzhen or San Francisco, right? So we need to build it now. And one of the things that we are discussing, and it's also part of this revision that we're doing on the AI Act, the AI regulation, is that we're putting in that the member states and the company need to hire the AI literacy. So we need to basically democratize use of AI, because one great example that I usually talk about in Brussels is the Swedish home PC reform.
Yes.
When in the 90s,
Yes.
Sweden gave access to internet and computers for everybody, and that led to a lot of creativity among kids, young people, who then created the unicorns that we see today, both
Exactly.
from Spotify, Klarna, but also Lovable and
Yes.
everyone else we're so proud of.
Yes.
And we need to understand that if we're going to build the next generation of the Swedish tech wonder that are going to build the growth and the prosperity in Sweden and Europe, we need to give that accessibility also. Not only in schools, there has to be an AI strategy in schools in Sweden,
Yes.
Definitely, but there has to be more adoption in the welfare states, in the hospitals, I mean, the whole society has to be integrated in this, because it's about, this is an important tool to make our societies better and more efficient, more innovative, and create new solutions. So we have to think a little bit positive that this can create possibilities, and not only that is a scary thing coming up.
Agree.
Thanks.
Final question to all of you. 2 questions each, short. What is one thing you will do differently tomorrow based on the discussion we've had today? And second, what is one thing that you want the audience to bring with them from the conversation, not necessarily only from this session, but from today, and perhaps in the perspective of women in tech? Starting with you, Arba.
Oof, what was the question again?
Anything you would do differently tomorrow, and what do you want the audience to bring with them from today?
From today, what I would differently, I need to spend more time in being creative on all of the new AI tools, because otherwise I also will be lacking behind. So I need to put more time in it to learn even more tools. And secondly, I think that, it's not about only tech bros in Stockholm. We have 3,000 women here who are interested in tech. And right now it's about, open up a vibe coding, be creative, do your thing, don't wait for your turn. I think it's about just, gasen i botten, as we say in Sweden. Build and create, because this is the best moment probably in history we've ever had. And we're living in the best country in Europe who actually we can build new thriving technologies and team up with together and just go for it.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Oh, that one's a hard one to follow up. I would say I'm interested in where the divergence is hitting the most, especially for the areas I work in, because that's going to mean everything. We can't let that divergence occur in our space at all. So that's what I'm going to take with me today. And then my big ask of everyone in this room is that, tech is thriving at the moment, and we're still not enough women in it. Believe it or not, and we know that we're creating a community. So whatever we can do in this room to recruit more people, more women to bring into this community, because now's our time to bring more people into this ecosystem. I think we're all in agreement with that. So big action. Everyone needs to bring one more person at least into the fold. And then the second one is, as we're seeing the democratization and what AI is doing, it's actually lowering the hurdles of getting into tech. So what does that mean for all of you in the room who are already in tech? What's the next ceiling that you can break? What are the next series of entrepreneurish or leaders that we need? There's so much more and so many areas that we still need so many fantastic female leaders to take this step into. So break more ceilings. Go forth.
Thank you. Susanna.
So my personal commitment is that I told my oldest son, who is only 9, yesterday that I'm coming to this panel today, and his immediate reaction was that, Mom, I'm sure that you count for half of the Nordic adoption in AI. And I was slightly puzzled by that comment, but I think it's due to the fact that I talk a lot about AI at home to my kids, because I want them to understand the tool. I don't want them to worship it. I don't want them to be afraid of it. And I do want to teach them how to use it. But I actually don't do that in the office or with my peers. Like, I don't have the everyday conversations like how I'm using AI, like where it's frustrating me, like what I've learned, where it's working super well, like what surprises it has brought. And I actually think these kind of everyday conversations are how we accelerate adoption. So that's my commitment. And then building on what my 2 fellow panelists said, like, you know, if you start building the startups and you hire new women, also consider if your tech is useful for defense, because defense is all our responsibility.
Thank you. And finally, Therése.
Super short. I will actually start to be a mentor for some investors who are starting their own companies, and they are only women. So that's my number 1. And number 2 is actually for you, everyone here, be a positive voice in your network. Look into the opportunities and the possibilities, and be not afraid of using AI. It's an opportunity for the future.
Thank you. Lots of good advice. I think on that note, gasen i botten, and a big hands of applause to this brilliant panel. Thank you.